My very first flight ever was broadcast on NBC News.
Aviators, welcome to the Flight Club podcast. I'm your host, Jason Middleton. I'm a pilot, I'm an aviation entrepreneur, and a huge fan of the people that make up our diverse aviation community. Today's guest on Flight Club is a fascinating human. She's been a broadcast journalist. She's been a corporate jet pilot. She's had a career of business coaching. She's been a public speaker. You might know her as the pilot of the Pink Jet. Aviators, welcome Stephanie Goetz. Because Stephanie gets what Stephanie wants.
That's right.
Stephanie, welcome to the Flight Club podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on here, and welcome to my home away from home, our hangar.
Yeah, we're doing some hangar talk today, and we're on lawn chairs, and the hangar mechanics are walking around, and
Yeah.
we've got this absolutely beautiful aircraft sitting behind us.
Yes.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about it?
Oh,
What is this thing?
This is a very precious loved one right here. This is the L-39 Albatross. It's a military Czechoslovakian-made military trainer jet. So it's been used all over the world in militaries to train pilots to become fighter pilots or better pilots. And in some cases, they're using it as one of their jets that they use for flying. So certainly an incredible aircraft. It can pull up to 9 Gs and -4.
Oh my God.
And yeah, so I'm not going up to that level. I mean, there's some pretty impressive people that can. I pull around the most, maybe 6 or so.
You don't have G suits, do you?
No, not for this airplane. So you have to be doing the G resistance maneuvers the whole time. So you're working. I was just flying in an air show recently, and in that one when we're just doing passes, there's no aerobatics, but you're still pulling. You can pull 3, 5 if you're really pulling tight. You can pull a lot of G's, but by the end of it, I was soaking wet, completely sopping wet, because when you're doing those G straining maneuvers and when you are really working it, you're working it.
Yeah, I've flown an Albatross one time with a buddy of mine, and it was so aggressive. We were out doing aerobatics, and it was I've never really been an aerobatic pilot or experienced that. And the G loads and the negative and the positive, I almost passed out at one point. I got the tunnel vision, and we went out and flew for about 2 hours, and we got back, and I didn't feel right for the day. I never got sick, but it's just everything was off, the equilibrium. Do you tell me about going, because you're doing a lot of aerobatic flying now too.
I am. So I do some aerobatics in the L-39, but also I'm doing a good amount of aerobatics in a little RV4 or an RV aircraft. And I've done it in decathlons. I've done it in extras, and that's been very fun. You really do have to build up a tolerance to it. It's like anything in life that you have to build up more, especially you can't just go probably lift. I couldn't just lift 75 pounds right now with 2 dumbbells, easily doing biceps. I got to work up to that. Yeah. And that's the same thing with pulling G's. So we do things when you start out flying, when you start out in that first sortie, or when you start out when you're first doing a training flight for an aerobatic airplane. You will do G prep maneuvers. So you'll do a little G warm up. So you'll go and you'll pull 2 or 3 Gs, and then you'll turn, maybe 100 degrees the other way, and you'll do another 3 or 4 Gs. And then you'll build yourself up even in that first time to just feel how am I feeling today? Because if you're just when you go to the gym, if you are really stressed, if you have a lot going on, if you didn't sleep well, it's going to be, you might not be able to push it as hard in the gym.
Yeah.
You might not be able to push it as hard in the airplane as well. So you really have to be aware of that and honor that and say, well, maybe today is a 3 or 4 G day, maybe versus a 6 or 7 G.
Yeah. Have you ever scared yourself?
Well, you hope to never really do that.
Well, in aerobatics, you have to push the uncomfortable, right? To do these more aggressive maneuvers and all the things you do. You don't you start out straight and level pilot, right? And then you start going into these maneuvers. You're going upside down. You're doing
So you start out when you're doing aerobatics, you're always flying with an instructor for, I would hope, a good amount of time, a long time, because you're going to put yourself in a position up there, even if you just pull wrong over the loop and you kind of come over sideways, and you're if you don't know that you had pulled sideways, you can get very disoriented very quickly. Yeah. So you have to know in those disorienting types of situations to actually put yourself in them with an instructor So you know how to get out of them with someone who's very experienced. So the more you see it, the more comfortable it feels. But you always have to be, I think you have to, I feel like I have to be sharper when I am flying aerobatics by far, because there's so much happening so quickly, and things can really, really go where they will, but you got to be ready for that.
Yeah. And you have to take it very seriously. I have a lot of friends that are aerobatic pilots, and they're really good aviators. Just at the end of the day, they're just really good pilots. But the kind of relationship with risk, aerobatic pilots they have, like the ones I've met, they're very methodical about their approach to it. And
Yes.
work with a maneuver. I have a friend that, he wanted to do flat inverted spins was one of the things he wanted to learn.
Wow, okay.
And
Yeah.
he was with, a very, very good instructor that worked him through it. They did it over and over and over.
Yeah.
And even after all of that training, he got into a spin he couldn't get out of.
Oh, wow.
And he eventually, he ultimately recovered, but it scared him.
Oh, yeah.
And he didn't.
You really want to, you just have to be very, very careful. And the more training you can get, the better.
Yeah.
I do a ton of training with instructors, and I almost over train, I feel like, because I want to be able to see everything with someone who has seen it 100 times.
Yeah.
So then I know how to get out of that, and they can show me how. But then also you do just have to go fly it on your own.
Yeah.
And you do have to trust that you've gotten enough training, you've gotten enough of learning, that once you're up there, you know how to get yourself out of that situation.
Yeah. Like what's the motivation? What's the drive behind that type of flying?
Everyone's a little bit different. I mean, me personally, I love doing aerobatics because it's like a dance in the sky.
Oh.
I mean, it's this beautiful orchestra that you put together on the ground, and it's very, you put it together very purposefully. Yeah. And then it's time to beautifully showcase it in the air and just make it look like so easy up there, and it's all good, when it's not, when you're G-straining and when you're cutting things tight and all that.
You're working for it.
Absolutely, and you're getting a workout. But it's showing people what the capability of the airplanes are, what it can do, and to show people, a lot of people that just see straight and level airplanes, to show them what's possible with the airplane. It also makes you a far better pilot. Yeah. When you see all different planes of flight, then you're able to feel more comfortable. And God forbid you were in a situation where, let's say that you were a smaller airplane behind a very large aircraft, like a big heavy or a Boeing or something like that, and that you get some wake turbulence and you are flipped upside down in your Cessna or your TBM or your Piper Cherokee. What would you do in that situation? And a lot of people, especially with inverted flight, that's a very unique place, because when you are inverted, a lot of people would think, oh, I pull and get out of it. And it's like, no, you need to stay inverted. You need to push. Right. And that's the opposite direction that you would feel, I think, in many cases. So just doing that over and over again, taking a second, if God forbid you get in that situation, and being able to recover from it is helpful when you learn aerobatics, or at least upset recovery.
Yeah. There's an upset risk recovery school out in like the Phoenix area. And I'm thinking about going to it.
Oh, the more training, the better, I say.
They use one of these for that training.
Because the other thing is, in every aircraft, it's a little different. Upset recovery in a small piston aircraft happens quite quickly, and it's probably not going to overspeed too terribly.
Yeah.
In this, or in a jet, you can get going very fast and go to the never exceed speed. You have to go quickly. So what would you do in those situations? Thankfully, in many cases, you have speed brakes, but what else can you use? What else do you try to not get in that situation, of course, in the first place? But what sorts of tools they'll give you are going to be really helpful.
Yeah. And I think they do that. This course, they want you to, they put you there because they want you to identify it really early. What are the things that can potentially put you into a position where you're going to have this very extreme maneuver you're going to have to get out of in an airplane, the kind of flying that I do, I'm a G550 pilot. I really sit there. I want to do everything I can to not have the airplane
go more than 30 degrees.
Yes, just like
the bank.
Tiny movements. And, because we have people in the back that are having champagne and they're being served caviar and having a nice meal, maybe watching a movie or sleeping or something. So we're like, don't make any sudden movements in the airplane.
Yes.
But you've done a lot of corporate flying yourself.
Yes.
You were a NetJets pilot.
Yeah.
And you were flying I think your last airplane was a Global.
Yeah, I absolutely love that airplane, Bombardier Global 6000. It's also the 5500 and 5000 type. So got to fly all of those airplanes, but the 6000 was by far my favorite. I loved it. I think once you get into long range aircraft, as you know, it's also a different type of flying. You're planning out in some cases what feels like days, and you're also planning out a 10, 12, 13 plus hour flight versus max 4 or 5.
Couple hours, yeah.
And so that you work differently because you're working very, very closely with your crew members in the cabin as well. Yeah, your
flight planners.
Yeah, all of that, and then also your flight attendants, if you have one or two or whatever that is, and they are like your equal crew member. And so getting to work with them to say, okay, what do we need for the passengers? What do we need to make sure, even just on the aircraft, do we have enough water on the aircraft? Do we have enough supplies of this and that? And so I find it fun because it's very challenging, and especially going over international waters and over to Europe, or anywhere else in the world. There's just a lot of different learnings that you have to have as a pilot to understand how to do that. And I learned so much from all the pilots there, and from so many others who had flown over the Atlantic or the Pacific or every ocean. And
I love long flights.
Yeah.
It's a long. I love getting into Gulfstream.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm a Gulfstream guy, so
Yeah.
I mean, you're a Bombardier person, fine.
I know, I am. Love Bombardier.
Yeah, but just like the planning side of it, the preparation, you're pushing these airplanes sometimes at the edge of their range capabilities, and you're having 3 pilots, and like you said, working with the cabin attendant, and it's like a logistical thing, and then it all comes together, and it's like perfection, It's shocking to me how accurate flight planning is. It blows me away. Like, we'll literally be within 100 pounds of a fuel burn in 2 minutes of
absolutely.
flight plane after an 11-hour flight.
I mean, and
it's crazy.
The engineers that make these aircraft are phenomenal. I mean, they really are down to this precision, minute detail, and it's very impressive. So it's thankfully.
Yeah. So what kind of drew you to the corporate? Because I feel like learning about you a little bit, you're wanting to try all these different things in aviation. And what was that phase of your life? What kind of drove you into going to fly the corporate side?
So I always wanted to fly corporate, and I think that's where I will probably always be and stay, because I just love it on the business aviation side of things. And for a multitude of reasons. First of all, you get to go through an FBO versus going through a terminal and walking through a very busy passenger terminal at a large airport. It's nice to be able to walk through an FBO, fixed base operator, and just kind of walk through to the airplane. Also, the aircraft that we're fortunate to fly, they're basically brand new. So you're getting the newest avionics, you're getting the newest interior, and they're all exactly the same. So you have this commonality, which makes it easier on us that typically you're going to come to like the same looking aircraft, and you're going to understand where things are, and it's going to feel familiar, even though there's hundreds and hundreds of the aircraft in general at that company, but others, it still feels like the same experience. In business aviation in general, it's really nice too, because you get that personal one-on-one interaction with your clients, with your passengers. It's typically 1 to maybe 10 at the most. Of course, you can fit more on a global, but often it's a handful of people. And so you get to have this incredible experience and get to meet these people, or also step back because they just want to be kind of left alone, and you respect that. And it's just a little bit different pace, I feel like. So I really like that part of it. Also, you're flying to new places every single week. So I'd fly with captains who'd been flying 30 years, and they've been flying in business aviation that whole time.
Yeah.
And they said, we're still flying to places I have never been.
Yeah.
When you are in business aviation, you do have to be prepared for going to a location in an hour that you've never heard of.
Yeah.
And so how are you going to brief that? And that you become very good at. Yeah. And I think I do think also a lot of airline pilots have that background because they've had that through their experience. It's just, it changes because it's in their career. But yeah, I think
my company, we employ a lot of pilots.
Yeah.
And we've seen airline pilots have a hard time transitioning into the business side of things. because they just like this. It's not about the flying. It's about just the schedule and the going somewhere different every day. Because when you're a corporate pilot, you literally go somewhere different every single. You never. I mean, it's very rare when you're flying the same city pair more than once a month, if ever. You know, you're constantly like, what are we doing today? Where are we going today?
Yeah.
And you know, but I don't know. I have a lot of friends that are airline pilots, and we debate this a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think when I do talk to people when they are looking at airlines or business aviation, I do tell them that's the reality as well, is that you're not going to know where you're for sure going every night. They might send you to Birmingham and then, oh, no, actually we're going down to Naples instead. And so if you were going to visit friends there, then it's, you know, you're going somewhere else now. And so there is that flexibility that you have to have as a business aviation professional. And some people say, hey, I'd like to know the route I'm going and I want to do that. And that's great. And then some say, you know, I like the variety a little bit.
That's what drew me to this side of the business. I was going to be an airline pilot, and I ended up in business aviation by default because of 9/11. I was going to go that path, and the 9/11 happened and airlines weren't hiring anymore. And I had no idea. And I started my first job flying King Airs. I'm like, this is awesome. I love this.
Yeah.
And it suited my personality with the flexibility and the spontaneity of it. And it's to me, it's a little bit more like romantic type flying. And I have this kind of like connection with aviation that way. You know what I mean?
I love it. I think what I would say is that I think you can have both worlds. I think if people want to fly very large aircraft in the airlines, I think business aviation is actually a great path there too.
Sure.
Because the more turbine time you have, the more jet time you have, the more that you are going to do better in that 737 or CRJ or getting up to an A350 or beyond. Yeah. And so I think that they can actually work together very nicely. And it's because sometimes people say, I've had people in the business aviation side say, you know, I love my time in business aviation, but I do want to go to the airlines and fly there. And then they fly there for a handful of years or 10 years. And then they say, I actually want to do more corporate flying again and have change of my schedule. So it's not like either or.
A lot of them are forced to too, because of the age restriction. You know, a lot of guys that we're seeing, they retire from the airlines and they're super healthy and they want to keep flying, and we're really their only option.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of that now. And I love having those guys come in because there's so much, experience, just aviation experience.
So yeah. There's so much wealth of information that they have for sure.
Well, I just really like my take on it is it should be all about the medical. We should have really hard medicals they really look at our health. And if you're healthy, there should be a cognitive component to it. Maybe some blood work, I don't know, but just really look at the health of the pilot. And then, because you can be 65 years old and doing Ironmans. A lot of people do. And then, they can't fly an airplane anymore. I don't know. I do talk about that a lot. And I'm actually having some people on from the FAA, hopefully after the government gets back in business. But aviation was not your first career. You started out in a different world. And when you and I spoke, you started in the Midwest. And tell me about your first kind of job and what you did. What was your first, because you had a big transition from your first world into aviation. I want to hear about your first world.
Yeah. So aviation was never on my radar. It's not something that I ever even thought could exist for me. I was fine at math and science, but I thought STEM, that's just something for other people. And so no one in my family is a pilot, and no one, at least immediately in my family, in that we drove to every family vacation. We didn't really go. I think I went on an airline 1 or 2 times. It felt like, before I was graduated high school, or certainly before I got into high school. So it just wasn't something that was a part of my life. And then once I was into my professional career, I went into broadcast. I very much loved the world of sports, and I loved theater. So growing up, I was a singer, I was a performer, I was in acting and all of that, and I loved it. And so I wanted to go into something that also had something with sports in it, because I absolutely love sports. So I married those two worlds and did sports broadcasting, but the jobs really started coming in news. So I did mostly news anchoring and reporting with also some fill-in sports reporting and anchoring and all that for about 10 years. So that was at ABC, CBS, NBC affiliates, and did everything from historic floods to trials to cat fashion shows, I swear. I mean, there's everything. And then, of course, all the sideline reporting and then anchoring and stuff like that. It was so much fun.
How, like, that must be just, I do this podcast and I'm not a reporter. We're just here chatting, right? But like, you got to be on, you're running the news when you're the anchor, when you're the main person, right? The cameras are on, it's live. Like, tell me about that world a little bit.
So interesting to me. You get very used to being under the pressure and having to do well under pressure and figure it out. I remember one of my very first live shots. It was just in the studio area, but you're looking at a camera and it's live and there's no teleprompter because they just didn't have money for a teleprompter for that camera.
Really?
So, but you have to look at the camera the whole time when you're saying your entire script. So you have to memorize your script up until a little bit past where they take the B-roll or the video. And then once the video pops up, you can see it on a monitor. Then you can look down at your script. That
corner of your eye.
Yeah. And, you just, I think well, maybe not surprisingly, but one of the best ways that prepared me to be a really great broadcaster was being in theater. So I was Anna in The King and I in high school, and that's like a 3-hour play or something with, I think I had 5 songs that I sang just on my own and then like a couple of others with. It's a very, very large role. She's only out of like 3 scenes in the 50 scenes or however many there are in there. So it's a very big role. And I did other theater, all kinds of things. But what that does is the show has to go on. So a quick example on that is when I walked out to my very first theatrical performance of the night of the weekend for that show, I walk out on stage and I have these huge, big ball gown, like, a 1900s gowns that women would wear in their big bell gowns. And I had like 5 skirts layered on top of each other because I had to change so quickly after that. In between the costume changes, I would just like go off stage and then they would just like take the one skirt off to go to the next skirt and then the next skirt and the next skirt. So I would wear like 5 skirts to start the show. Well, as I walk out and I'm like, hello, in my English accent, you can't hear me. My microphone's not on. Why? No. Because the pack that's on my leg is not turned on. So what do? Do you be like, okay, guys, hold on just 1 second? No, the show must go on. And so I'm 18 years old and I figure out, no, I reached down through all the layers of 5 dresses. I somehow find just the little button on the mic pack on my leg and I click it on. And all of a sudden, there's my voice.
That's on.
Yeah. And so, you learn these really valuable skills that like you don't always get redos or do-overs. Like you have to move forward. And sometimes you got to tap dance a little bit and make it work. And like, that's life. And that prepared me hugely for performing and being an anchor because so much of it, I'd say 90% of it, although 90% of it is researching your facts, knowing your story, getting the details and like getting the right story. 10% of it is on air and whatever it sees, but it ends up being 100% because that's the first thing that they see. So you don't have a margin for error. And they're like, why did they screw up? Well, if they would have been in the studio, they would have seen the teleprompter froze or it was completely wrong. And then you don't look so great. So I think you're the one on camera. Yeah, the buck stopped with you. Yeah,
I totally understand the musical theater preparing you for that. But I'm a musical theater dad.
Oh,
my daughter was like, and she's still, in fact, she's stage directing right now as we speak for a matinee back in Santa Barbara. But she grew up since she was like 5 years old in the theater acting, and she got really good at it. She was landing the leads in our we have a great production, musical theater production company in Santa Barbara, and she was the lead in everything. I mean, she was Annie, like she was in all these things. Well, she was doing they were doing James and the Giant Peach, and there was 2 leads because it's kids, right? They can't do all these shows, so they'll swap back and forth. And the other kid couldn't remember his lines, and she's in every single scene. or James is in every single scene in that play, and tons of solos. And it's just a very, like you were saying, it's an intense thing. And I remember, I'll never forget, it was like, they were doing like two episodes. They were doing 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. It was maybe 3 on, I think it was 3 on Saturday. And it was a Saturday night. She'd been going, not sleeping, and she just completely broke down backstage. Just lost her mind. She was so good. And I was back there with her, and the director's like, you need to get out of here, Dad. Just get out of here. I'll deal with it. And she was a bawling mess. And I leave and I go out, I go in the audience. Literally 3 minutes later, she walks out and boom, is on.
Yeah.
I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And I asked the director, she's like, she's an actor. She's a pro. And it was like, and she's so, like, nothing phases her anymore. She can perform. She's, and it's really interesting I think it's important. It's so cool that you have that.
And interestingly, it translates to aviation, because when you are in the flight deck in a cockpit alone, flying the airplane in IMC at night, you got to get the thing down. And regardless, you do. But in those challenging conditions, you are the only one that is going to be able to get the airplane down. And so there's no like, oh, let me just like take a minute. And of course there is, if you need to like go in the hole or something.
The show is going to go on.
The show's going to go on. And to also know, and then to flip it and say, okay, I'm trained for this. I know how to do this. I'm going to depend on my instruments or whatever this is. I think those are all really valuable skills. So when I went from aviation, or when I went from broadcast into aviation, that part of it translated very nicely and came over about being able to handle the pressure and under pressure. And of course it's sometimes it's not easy, but knowing the tools and techniques to be able to manage through that. But interestingly, the biggest swap was I was a very creative person. I was doing executive coaching at the time. After I left broadcast, I wanted to do more, to have ownership over my own schedule and my life. And I said, I think I want to leave broadcast and do something different, and I'm going to start my own business. And I did that in speaking and coaching and executive coaching and media training and all kinds of things. That is like its own path, and figure it out.
Yeah. What kind of coaching did you do? What would you?
Yeah.
So I'm a CEO. What are you going to coach me on?
Yeah. So mine is specifically, well, it's what you would specifically need.
Yeah.
But where my skills lie are how to elevate your leadership through your communication and presence. Okay. And ultimately, though, that has massive ripple effects on those that you lead, because how we act, how we come across, how we talk, our nonverbals, and that thing called presence that speaks well before us, before we are even in a room, speaks volumes, especially because as a leader, when you walk in the room, everyone sees and everyone notices and everyone pays attention. So everything you're doing does matter, whether you like it or not. And so coaching them on how to have that warmth and that strength tied together. It can't just be like an overbearing leader, or boss, I should say. And then it can't be like a wet blanket and someone who's not going to make tough decisions. You have to have both. And that really creates a dynamic leader.
What are some of the mistakes leaders make in that area? What's the most common things you saw in that?
Yeah, some of the things that I've seen, because I still do this today and I love doing it, is people undervalue the importance of making people feel seen and heard. And guess what? That's free.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times do we walk by and not say something or congratulate or nice job on a really difficult task that they did?
Yeah.
There's a CEO and governor who I know very well, and he said, I have an unlimited bucket of compliments that I reach into every day and give them to people as much as I can in the right way. But you also need to have constructive criticism to make them better. But most often we forget that, like, these people are pouring their lives into your organization. What are ways you can show that they are seen and heard? And even little things like, when's the last time you sat down with the person across the desk, or walked into the room and said, hey, how are you doing? And how's your mom doing? Or how's your family? Or how was that game for your kid this weekend?
Yeah.
Those little things sound soft, but they're not, because at the end of the day, you have to motivate people to be doing something for you. Even if it's a great paycheck, they might, if they don't love it, they're out of there.
Yeah.
If they don't feel heard, if they don't feel valued, and many cases challenged and pushed to actually get themselves better, they're not going to keep working for you. And they'll, at worst, they'll leave, but at maybe even worser is that they will be there and not productive and not helping the organization.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that it's like an ego thing that gets in the way? Like the mindset around that, is it more like they just don't think of other people? Like,
I haven't seen it so much as an ego thing. I will say there are people that over-index a lot on the analytical, technical side of things, and they actually don't understand empathy. I've recently had a client who was a very, very well-to-do business analyst, but he was a consultant.
Yeah,
and he didn't understand that he can't just be short and sharp with people and just tell it like it is. Like, this is how it's going to be, and it is what it is. And I was like, well, how would you like to be talked to like that? Like, you'd probably shut down.
He's like, I don't allow people to talk to me like that.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, then maybe no one talks to you. And like, you're going to be in a silo, and you're actually probably not going to work at that company too much longer if your tone of voice is in this place that's not welcoming. So
I think this has there's a direct correlation with the flight deck, with what we're talking about right now, and it's about communication and hearing people, listening to your crew you fly with. We see this in captains a lot, that they don't hear thing. It might be said, but it's not really like absorbed and listened to, and then what happens is you build up a wall with that person. And I think this happens a lot in leadership, where if you're sharp with somebody, like you were just mentioning, that person is now going to be guarded. They're not going to come to you. They're not going to feel like it's a safe place. And you don't want that either.
No.
Smart leaders want to hear about the problems and challenges. They don't want that. And if every time a problem or challenge is brought up to them, they get mad about it.
Yeah.
They're just like, hey, we have no problems anymore, because nobody ever. But the reality is the problems get worse.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have an environment that's welcoming, open, and also is willing to hear when things aren't going so well. So a lot of times, leaders that I've spoken with, they're like, well, I want feedback and all of that. I'm like, well, are you willing to actually hear it and listen to it when you receive it? Because if someone says, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolutely exceptional and 1 being atrocious, on how they're feeling about the company at that moment or working there, if they give you a 2, are you going to actually listen? And so a lot of times people then will say other things, well, it's just them or this or that. And that's not the case. Like, they have a valid reason as to why they're feeling a certain way. You either need to figure that out, or you need to, start examining what's going on. So there's just a lot of overall communication, especially, when you're flying airplanes, it's got to be even more important. And I feel really fortunate that I was able to fly with really 9 times out of 10, if not more, solid individuals and solid captains, and others who I've flight instructed, who are just learning, that are willing to hear the feedback with the input. And especially if we're coming into kind of a dicey situation and we need both pilots to figure out, like, to give good input, they listen. And that's been very good. It's definitely, of course, the industry is not always the case, but I think as people move more towards that, and as schools and as companies push and say this, at least hear the other person out, because they might be able to save your life. Like, we do need to make sure that we are listening to the other person, even if they are junior or from a different experience altogether. They might have very valuable information. They often do.
Totally. And I'm in a weird position because I'm the CEO of an aviation business, and I'm also a pilot, and I'm a person that's had a lot of executive coaching because I never even went to college. My background was an athlete before this, and I'm just trying to figure it out. But one of the things I have learned is that you have to have this culture of openness, and you have to have a culture that people will have a safe place to bring things up, because it directly ties to safety, right? And I'm even speaking at the MBAA this year from a CEO's perspective on our relationship with risk and safety. And, oftentimes we can put pressure on crews and not even know it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
It's the information that we're one side of the equation, but then it's received a certain way as well. And a lot of times pilots, what we found is aviators, they're mission oriented. They want to get the job done. They want to please the people in the back. They want to please the boss, all these things, right? And, and we have to balance this mission, accomplishing a mission with also accomplishing it safely. And it's a weird, it's not like, most CEOs, if they make a big mistake, they're not going to make as much money, right? If we make big mistakes, specifically as it relates to culture, it can lead to big safety problems. And I've really spent a lot of time, on this subject. I have mentors that I talk to them all the time. I'll call them if I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. And it's amazing to have the feedback from them on how I should be handling things. They say, it's been really important to me.
In aviation, if you will have a community, whether you like it or not, it seems like, because it's such a welcoming place in many regards. If you really are looking for people to help and support you, they will be there in aviation, because everyone's been there. Everyone's experienced, everyone started from the very bottom and worked their way up. And so we all know what it's like to go through challenges in training, to go have days where you're like, I don't know if can I get through this rating? I'm not sure. Or will I be able to progress this next thing? Or what am I doing here? Do I want to go this way or this way? And so it's critical to have that. And I think that people who really find their people really are successful in the industry.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned community, and your husband is an aviator. Your husband is a pretty exceptional guy himself. I mean, you're exceptional. Oh, yeah. He's also you guys are like the power couple.
Well, I definitely wouldn't hang out with someone who's not exceptional. So that I had to. No, he really is incredibly exceptional. I remember, I think it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that she was saying, how incredible she was as a judge. She was saying that actually what has the power of her partnership with her husband and her family was so pivotal and integral in her success. Yeah. And I look at my success over the years, and actually some of it is because of him, because he pushed me to be better. He's always pushing me through and breaking me through my own glass ceiling that I even put over myself and say, well, I can only get to here. That seems pretty good. Yeah. And it's like, no, you are limitless. Yeah. And so that's what's been really incredible. When I got introduced to aviation in general, it was when I got a call out of the blue when I was a newscaster by an 80-year-old flight instructor. He goes, you should do a story on aviation. And I was like, okay, sure, fine. I'm busy. Why not? Yeah. I go and do the story with him. He puts me in the left seat of a Piper Archer, and I'm flying the airplane. And I was like, okay.
Did you guys film in the airplane?
Yeah, my very first flight ever of instruction was broadcast on NBC News.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Don't screw that landing up.
Yeah. I was just like, okay, I think I'm doing okay. It was incredible. But I remember lifting off for the first time. He showed me how to do everything. And I just got that feeling of weightlessness and freedom. And I just thought,
that was the drug.
Where has this been?
That's it.
Yeah, this is it. And it was also like, well, who's been hiding this from me? Because this seems amazing. Why have I not known about it? But
you knew about it. You just didn't experience that first liftoff.
Yeah. And
first takeoff is the thing.
Yeah. It had been all around me, but I had never actually experienced it myself. And so interestingly and serendipitously, after that flight, first of all, it was like this huge high and then low, because I was like, well, I want more of this, but how do I get more of it?
Swing. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to get more of this because I don't have the time or the money. Well, interestingly, a few weeks after that, very serendipitously, there was a guy who had he had a turbo commander and was a general aviation pilot, but had all the ratings and stuff. He was flying for business and other things. And we got to know each other and hang out, and I got to know aviation through him and got to fly occasionally with him. And then over time we start dating, we hang out, and he now is my husband. And he has been my flight instructor through 85% of my ratings. And yeah, we're still married after all that training.
So awesome. Well, you guys, I was so cool getting to kind of know you on the phone and your and your husband's background. And I mean, he was a consultant for McKinsey, which is a pretty big deal.
And a partner there.
It's phenomenal. Now I know he sits on some boards of companies, and he's also over in the hangar working on an airplane.
Okay, so
he's ampy. Okay. I'm like, what do you not do?
He is the most interesting man in the world. Dos Equis guy has nothing on him. So he's
from Norway.
Yeah, he's from Norge. So hi Norge. The funniest thing though is, all right, so we have 3 airplanes. We have this, we have we have a Citation, then we also have a little RV. And it's kind of, it's a fleet of airplanes, so you got to take care of them. Well, that's a lot of maintenance. I always say the greatest gift he has ever gotten me to this day, hands down in the world, is not diamonds or handbags. It is when he got his A&P rating. Because now he can search on.
Fortune.
Well, more so, it's time.
Yeah.
So he can work on all of our airplanes. Every day. I mean, he was just out here today. He's going down.
Well, he's changing a generator on the Citation right now.
Yep. And then he's going down to Henderson to tend to the pink jet that's down there. It's a whole nother wonderful topic.
Yeah.
And so, but he is at the hangar every single day almost, working on some little squawk list on the airplanes. And anyone who owns an airplane, flies airplanes, they know there's always something that you can work on, and just a little thing like, we put the radios in, they weren't like perfectly, so we're gonna have to readjust those, or something kind of like got dislodged, so we're gonna have to put that back in, and all those kinds of little things that. But then there's obviously major things that are some components that you have to tend to. So I've learned an immense amount from him, but now it's fun because we kind of jockey for ratings. So overall ratings, we have the same amount. I have more jet type ratings and he has more instructor ratings. So he has a CFII. I just have MEI, CFI.
Do you wrench on airplanes a little bit yourself?
Not really. I really leave that to
you.
him.
Really nice nails.
Has nice nails. I can do it. I say I can, but I just don't want to. I mean, there are little things like when we're on the road, the other day I had to, on one of our L-39, on one of the L-39s that I fly, we had to put the rat down, which so we had to put that ram air turbine. So if you had an electrical failure, you'd actually have a little bit more power through that. But we had to put that down because I had to get in the compartment up there in that bay way underneath on the tail of the airplane to go flip a switch on something for environmental. So, there's always little things. And I mean, in an Albatross and in these kinds of jets, there's always a little something you're having to mess with, but you get good at it, dangerous enough to just know what you're doing.
So in aviation, you're a pretty famous person in the aviation world, and they either know you directly, Stephanie, or you just mentioned the pink jet. Everybody knows the pink jet. They know exactly when you, I'm interviewing the pink jet person. They're like, they know exactly who you are.
Oh, that's great.
And what's going on. Tell me about that. That's like, it's a very well-known, piece of aviation out there right now, which is awesome. Anything that like brings attention to aviation, I'm a huge fan of.
Absolutely. I think it's this multifaceted powerhouse that I'm just so honored to be the steward of, along with 5 other amazing pilots that we have and mechanics and operations. So the pink jet is an L-39 Albatross, so just like this, but pink. And it is for breast cancer awareness, supporting early detection and supporting survivors or those who've been impacted by the disease. So what we do is we fly in air shows, at events, at flyovers, to be that beacon of hope and light and support for survivors, and be that message that like you are supported, there is a community, we're with you. But we also go out and at different events, we will talk about what does early detection look like. So how can you talk to your wife, your mother, or as a guy, unfortunately, men can get breast cancer too. It's a very small percentage, under 1%, but it's still possible. Yeah. So talking about the early detection support, because when breast cancer is caught early, there's something like a 90+% survival rate. Yeah. So it is a very survivable cancer when it's caught early, but it can be very devastating, and there are many people that are impacted. Unfortunately, my mom had breast cancer just about 2 years ago, and she had stage 3 breast cancer. Now, she had a mammogram. She'd been getting mammograms her whole life. Everything looked great. And then she got a mammogram done, and it didn't feel so great. And women especially know their bodies. Like, we know what's going on. And so she felt like something was off, but she told the doctor, I think that there's something else. Can we get another test? And he's just like, no, you're fine. It's fine. You're fine. So she went another 2 years, and finally she got another mammogram, and it was now changing shape. And they were like, we need to get an MRI breast exam. Yeah. So what that is, of course, if anyone, understanding MRIs versus more x-rays, you're getting a much more detailed picture of what's going on there. they went in and they found a 9 millimeter tumor growing in her breast and then also into her lymph nodes. She went into surgery. Oh yeah. So
It gets bad.
Yeah. And so she had like 20 some lymph nodes taken out. She, an 8-hour surgery. It was down in Mayo Clinic down in Rochester. It was very good, but, I don't want anyone to ever experience that. Thankfully, don't have to go back to that day. It was absolutely devastating. It was very hard to see her go through that. Now, I'm very blessed that the doctors did an exceptional job and the surgeons, that she's still with us today.
Yeah.
And she's alive and she's surviving. But when you have that many lymph nodes taken out, there's a chance of lymphedema.
Right.
So that means the arm can swell. There can be no drainage.
It screws your lymphatic system up.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. Now, she was able to get what's called a lymphovenous bypass. So I think it's one of the very few people in the nation that do it, and we're so fortunate. So he was able to essentially route some of the drainage into another part of the body. So she was able, and she's doing great, but that's incredibly traumatic. That's challenging. And she had to have radiation too. That's just one of thousands of stories out there of women and men who've been impacted by it. And so the goal is that someone can say early on, in my mom's case, she had dense tissue. And if she would have known that, she did know that, but she was trying to be her own advocate and she should have pushed harder. So I think that she knows, and that's kind of what we advocate for now, is if you have dense tissue, get an MRI breast exam because that could save your life. So there's all kinds of these discussions that we get to have even at air shows or events. Like I'll be flying into an event down in Long Beach where I get to talk to their class and their flight school about breast cancer awareness for the month of October, but also about empowering young women getting into aviation because, pink is definitely women are drawn to it for sure, men too, but it's just this very powerful symbol also of like showing that women can.
We need more women in aviation.
That would be very nice. And that is the goal every day.
It's getting better.
Yeah.
It's hard to find women pilots. We employ a couple hundred pilots and we might have 3 or 4 women. It's just
the how to solve this is certainly probably its own podcast in itself because there's so many factors that go into it. It's been a long time coming that for many years that women weren't welcome into the flight deck, but it's certainly changed dramatically now.
Yeah.
But there's still many challenges that women face. First of all, the women still, of course, and always will, they are the ones that are having the child, and that's difficult.
It's a real thing.
It's
a real thing.
At 30 weeks or 35 or whatever, that they need to no longer maybe be flying. So that takes them out of the flight deck for a while. And then after they have the baby and that support system, they can't just go right back to work like 20 days later.
Yeah. And the nature of aviation, you're gone for days and days and days, which is hard to be away from a kid. And I had, I was a full-time pilot as my kids were growing up. It was just hard for me just being away from them emotionally, just a lot of you miss so many things.
Yeah. And I think man or woman, it certainly is a challenge, but certainly that portion right around, the birth of a child, that's a very physically, mentally, and emotionally challenging and elation, an amazing time for women. But it's also, as I think that the industry, if they can do more to support that and say, hey, we want to get these women flying again and we want to get them that support and get them the support for that they can be gone a few days at a time once they're ready to go, that would be wonderful.
Oh, and there's a lot more things to do in aviation than just fly. We employ a ton of women that work in operations, compliance. Our chief inspector is an awesome woman. She's not a pilot, but she's been a A&P mechanic, and we have multiple women in our maintenance department. The team that I'm our director of operations, so I have a team of people that work with me on regulatory compliance, manual writing, managing pilots, all that stuff. It's all women. And they, so there's so many things you can do in aviation. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. They it's like, oh, there's all this stuff, other things than just being a
There.
pilot and having to be gone all the time.
Yeah. And you're not always gone all the time too. I mean, there's operations that I used to fly for a different charter company, and we were home like 75% of the time.
Yeah.
So it was out and back, and that's nice. So there are operations like that, but then there are definitely times where you're gone a lot. So I think the more people understand what kind of jobs are out there, what kind of options that they have, but also it's got to be like a really welcoming space. I think that's gotten a lot better over time, but it has to be a place that women feel like they are valued, appreciated, and they're welcome, because women make one heck of a pilot.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we could do a much better job as an industry at showcasing these things, right? It's just not a traditional path. And I think we could definitely do a better job. And I'm hoping like this podcast is one of my things. I talk about this a lot, like just trying to get it out there and social media and all this stuff.
Yeah. And the community around it, like Women in Aviation, the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals, National Gay Pilots Association, Latinos Association, all these organizations of any group that's underrepresented, those are really helpful, because you can certainly, it just helps you along the way feel like I feel seen and heard and welcomed in this place, and facing similar challenges as someone else. And then you feel that you can continue to really enjoy the industry.
Yeah.
But I've seen it little by little over time get better. There's a ways to go still.
Yeah, you're right. There is. And we try and, like we try and really look at that as our company. It's a responsibility, I feel like, right, to just kind of have a good, diverse workforce. And we had the president of the National Gay Pilots Association was my chief pilot for 30 years.
Yeah.
Ari.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
Armenta,
Amazing.
Yeah. He's a good friend of mine.
I love the
Awesome
NGPA. We've supported them so much over the years. And I think what they're doing is so great, along with the other organizations. And I think if there's two things I always like to leave people with in regards to the bringing people into the industry and the kind of diversity conversation, is this, that the diversity is not just the right thing to do, but it is the safe thing to do. So when you have someone who is just from any different walk of life, they're going to have a different perspective on something in the flight deck, and they might catch something that you don't. So when you have a diversity of perspective in anywhere, in any company, it creates a safer, more symbiotic, and better operation. And there is room for everyone in the flight deck at a seat at the table. It's not like there is this scarcity that if this person gets the job, someone else won't. It's that there are so many jobs available out there. It might look maybe even a little bit different. You might even like it more, but there is an abundance of opportunities in aviation. And as long as we continue to bring the right people in and great people in, it's going to flourish.
I mean, I think 100%. The culture in aviation, just since I've been in the business, and I've been, I don't know, 25 years I've been in this industry. And, that when I started flying, the mentality was, if you don't want to get this flight done, I'll find somebody else that will. That was the way it was everywhere in our industry. And I worked for a company, and I won't name any names, but it was pretty much the worst things you can imagine. Like, no women, no people of color, you get the mission done, or I'll find somebody else that'll do it. Pay was crap, like you name it. The equipment wasn't taken care of. And that was just the norm back in the day.
That's not good, yeah.
And I think that, people like me are now running these companies, and we've come up with a very different background. And, we're a little more I think we're way more now open to the diversity and openness and empathy, emotional intelligence, all these things, ego getting in the way. I think there's so much more awareness now, and most of the people that I know that run very successful aviation businesses, that's how they do it.
Yeah. That's the right way to do it. Yeah. To really lead with an understanding and empathy, bring the right people along, regardless of where, just getting the right people for the right job, and also making a space that's welcome to everyone.
Yeah. And I think that it does translate to safety on the cockpit. You mentioned diversity in the flight deck. I think it's also important to have, this kind of, the leaving the ego at the door, right?
Oh, goodness, yes.
Leaving it on the ramp. And not only just from being like an approachability standpoint as a crew member, but also like not, understanding your limits as a pilot.
Yeah.
I have a thing where whenever we hire really anybody, but more specifically pilots, and I have a verbal agreement with all of our crew members as the CEO, the main guy at the company. If you feel something is unsafe, A, don't do it. And then B, if somebody ever gives you pushback, here's my cell number, call me.
That's great.
I'll take care of it for you.
That's wonderful.
And I've been doing that since for 15 years now. And I've had maybe 3 or 4 pilots call me.
Oh, wow.
And because once they are empowered, once they like, hey, Jason has my back.
Yeah.
Now they can make a decision. They can make a really smart decision and not feel like somebody from above is going to get them, right?
That's wonderful.
And when you have that type of culture in an organization, it's safe. It's safe. And people, they become like, hey, we can't do it like that. But you know what? We can do it like this.
Yeah.
We can, remove some weight, or we can depart later, earlier to a different runway or something, right? They want to get it done, right? But the number one thing is to get everything done safe.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that takes empathy, that takes empowerment. It takes, leaving the ego. And you work with a lot of CEOs. I have to do that as a leader.
Oh, definitely. I feel like the person that has to have the least ego by far is the leader or the CEO, because there's a lot of really smart people that you hired that you're asking them to use their wit, their smart, and use their intelligence to do great things for the company and for the world. Yeah. And we have to empower them to do that, because otherwise they're going to say, well, if you're just going to tell me what to do, why don't I go somewhere else?
You're right. I mean, it's so funny though. I've had to work on that personally, and I'll be the first one to admit it. Like, if there's a problem, I'm going to tell you how to solve it. and I've had to like withdraw from doing that so much. And I'm like, well, what do you think we should do?
Yes.
How do you think we should solve this?
Yeah.
You have 3 ways. Which one do you think is best? Go try it. And if you fail, all right, go try something else. And it's I've had to learn to do that. Yeah. Because I'm such a problem solver, right? I want to help. And I look at it as help, but other people look at it as Jason's going to tell us what to do.
Yeah, you don't want robots. You want people, a critical think, that will be able to be working for you. Plus, you want people that if you say, hey, I need to be gone for a week or a few days or several weeks, that it will be in great hands, because you have given them everything that they need to actually be successful without you as well.
How did you what was your mentorship like? How did you kind of learn that kind of stuff?
In leadership?
Yeah.
So a lot of it was I absorb so much information around me. So like I am an observer. I love seeing how people operate, how they act. I've done a lot of, whether it's reading books or biographies of people that have been very successful. The other thing is, once I started getting out on the job for doing executive coaching, I was just taking in everything. I think the EQ side of me is just very strong. I mean, that's something I'll always have to try as much at. On the technical side of things, I really have to work at that. I do have to study that and all of that. That other side of understanding human behavior and how people operate is like a sixth sense for me. I can almost just like see it. So I just continued to hone it over the years. And every executive I'd see that if they would have a problem or do something a certain way, and I realized if that was not the way we need to be doing it and adjusting it, then that was the answer there. Or things they were doing very well, I would take that note and say, that's exceptional leadership. Also, I was very fortunate to have my now husband, Endra, who had coached CEOs through his time at McKinsey & Company for, he was there 29 and a half years, we'll just say 30 years. Yeah. And as a partner for decades. And he just knew exactly how to talk to people. And so when I would have a problem or like, how am I supposed to deal with this? And how am I supposed to get them through this? He would say, well, have you thought about it this way? Or what about this? And he would always guide me on the right path or help me understand even more the emotional intelligence side. He has every intelligence. It's intellectual intelligence and it's emotional intelligence, except for the emotional intelligence he's had to work on a little bit at home, but no, he's great.
I think he's Norwegian. So I have a funny story about a Norwegian guy. So I flew for a long time with a Norwegian director of operations, and he was the most serious, by the book guy. Almost like it's funny. This company I flew for, our chief pilot was, he was the cowboy kind of guy, and very, very good stick and rudder pilot. And then we had our director of operations, this Norwegian guy that was like strictly by the book, precision.
He's Norwegian.
Yeah. And it was funny because they were both good aviators, but in very, very different ways.
Okay. Yeah.
And I got to fly with them, both of them. I was a co-pilot on this Hawker that he flew with these two characters. And I had to be a completely different person with them. I had to show up a completely different way. And it was interesting for me because I'm like, that was like my first corporate jet that I had to fly. And like, I'm like, I guess that's the big difference between what we do and what the airlines do, right? It was like, I'm doing things, call outs are different. My procedures are different. My use of checklists is different for both of these guys. And I had one was like slow, methodical. The other guy's switch, he wouldn't let me do my job, he's reaching over something and putting gear up, and like it was wild.
Okay, yeah.
But I had to operate with these two guys. So it was really funny. But the Norwegian guy, he was so precise. And in fact, he was so serious. He was funny. He would when on his non-flying days, he would still show up to the office in his uniform. Awesome. He just loved wearing uniform.
He was passionate about flying airplanes. A for effort.
Yeah. He went on to have a really awesome career. He flew for, I think he may have flown for NetJets for a while, but then he ended up for Emirates in their corporate division.
Oh, interesting. That would be fascinating.
Yeah. So
yeah, Norwegians are very, very unique. All my family, like my great-great-grandparents are from there. They emigrated from Norway, actually, in the 1800s. And emigrated into Kindred, North Dakota, which is just south of Fargo, North Dakota, don't you know?
Fargo.
And so actually that home, our family home, is in an emigration museum in Norway, in Hamar or Hallingdal in Norway.
Your grandmother lived in this.
So no, this was my great grandfather was born there, and my great grandfather emigrated there, and then my great grandfather was born there. So and then they moved to Western North Dakota from there. But that's where they came to homestead and live in the United States from Norway at the time. Yeah. And with no cell phone, no communication, no nothing, just get on a boat and go across this very expansive ocean to see what happens on the other side. It's very impressive what the immigrants who left their countries to come to the United States did. And so my family on that side, on my mom's side, but it was her grandfather. They're from Norway. And so my family, my heritage is Norwegian, in like the same country that I'm now married to, a man from there, and his whole family still lives there. Jeg snakker lite norsk, og jeg kan forstå lite norsk, but I can speak Norwegian and understand a little bit. He says I'm kjempeflink, very fluent, but I'm like, nei. Jeg prøver, I'm trying.
Do you talk to his mom in Norwegian?
Yeah, so his parents, they speak like mostly exclusively Norwegian. Yeah. And so I try my best, but they have a different dialect. So in Norway, the interesting thing is their dialects are very strong, because imagine 100 years ago, someone from a neighboring town is actually up a very, 3,000 found mountain and back down. You're not going to ever see them. Yeah. And so the dialects were so pronounced and different all throughout Norway. And they can understand each other because they're from there, a lot of them. But for foreigners and coming in there, I understand the Oslo dialect, the Oslo dialect, and they're the Sunnmørs dialect up in Ålesund is where he's from. It's one of the most beautiful countries.
Say the name again?
Ålesund. So it's the A with a little circle on it. They have 3 additional
Would that be
letters.
If you're saying it with an American accent, would it be Olsen?
Well, it kind of sounds Ålesund.
Ålesund.
Olesund. But it kind of sounds like Olsen, yes, but it's different. They would say that doesn't sound alike at all. And we're like, it sounds exactly the same, but it's an untrained ear. I can't hear it, but it's been very fun. It's been very fascinating to open up that whole world of my heritage.
Oh, wow.
Get to see our family cabin in Norway because like the original, where
Sounds like
my
you guys were like this, like meant to be together. It was like the stars.
I would say destiny, universe, God was like, hey, you know what?
Doing that stuff.
Yeah, I do.
Listen, I met my wife and it was like the craziest story, but we should not have ever met.
Yeah.
It's been like the best, absolute best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Ender and I, same thing. It was like we met at a random small, like nice little restaurant bar area, and like the chance that we would have actually met that night were like 1 in a million. And so I think if we allow it, if we allow those opportunities to happen in life, and we allow ourselves to be open to things, then you never know what will happen. Like my whole life, I haven't really had like this massive plan of here's the 5-year plan, the 2-year, the 6-month. Even though I'm fortunate that I've really pushed myself to accomplish a lot, it's happened because at the right time, that was like the right time, or these 6 months. Because actually before all of this, I was kind of just trying to survive. Growing up, I had 2 older brothers that were awesome, amazing parents, kind of a white picket fence family. My dad was a pharmacist. My mom was a teacher. But unfortunately, my older brothers both passed away before I was 18. So one when I was 12 and one when I was 17. And so it was just totally devastating for us, totally devastating, of course, for me as a sibling, but for my parents as well. And I mean, just
I lost a brother too.
Yeah.
Very young. I was 8 years old.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm so
I lost
sorry.
my brother.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's devastating. It's shocking, and it's like just earth shattering for you at that time, especially. And I don't know. For me, it was I just want to kind of survive and get by the next day and the next day. And I remember just going, I'll try this in college, or I'll try this because I was trying to get by. And I don't know, it seemed to have served me as I continue to
I feel
go.
like you've kind of mastered the transition in life too.
Oh,
I think it's your musical theater background.
Yeah, that's true. And scene.
Yeah. Let's go next. Well, it takes it. There's certain people that can just adapt to everything. And it's really cool how many different things you've kind of mastered too, right?
Oh, like the career pivot and life pivot. Yeah,
It's hard to master things, but some people just have a talent at just picking it up and being really good at it.
Yes.
I think it's a passion. You have a lot of passion.
Well, yes, but also anyone can. I talk about this. I coach this. I try to tell people like it's not saved for like the select few that were born with it. It's just not. We do have to get out of our own way more often than not. People get in their own way. So if they are in a job right now and they're like, I kind of like this, but I don't really love it. So what would I be doing? They don't even think about what else they'd be doing because they don't want to even try to take the time to do that. Because what's that called? Energy and not Netflix that they have to expend. Yep. And so you have to put down your phone. You have to take time and maybe do some research and talk to people. It doesn't happen overnight. Yeah. It takes work, but it's the greatest work you'll ever do because you're supposed to be doing what lights you up. Yeah. And I think what I found is that in broadcast, I loved it, but at some point, I didn't love it anymore. It was exhausting. It was tiring. I was doing a 5 o'clock, a 6 o'clock, and a 10 o'clock news every single Monday through Friday. Yeah. Yeah. I was.
You were doing 5 a.m.
No. I did do that for 2 weeks. I would wake up. I would go into work at 11 p.m. because I had to produce the show.
Are you kidding me?
Yes.
So you were like a cargo pilot at that point. Yes. Flying for FedEx.
I was totally a cargo pilot at that time. And I mean, but you're done at like 10 in the morning or 9 in the morning. But
my God.
What I think is really important is that people have to realize like it might take a little bit of an uplift in that initial like, ooh, I don't really know if I want to keep doing this.
Yeah.
But I want to try something else. So let me see what can be out there. And it is going to take some work, but that little time of discomfort or challenge, even after like, starting a business, when I started a business in coaching and executive training, that's not easy, but I after that, it just starts to get a well-oiled machine and it doesn't feel like work because like every day I love what I'm doing. And so you have this joy and this elation. And then you're also the most important piece, you're making great work. So you are doing your level of excellence is so high because you're in your flow, you're where you're supposed to be. And so that little bit of time of discomfort of figuring it out, people a lot of times aren't willing to do it. If they are, they will have the greatest life that they ever could have imagined.
My wife, my wife is experiencing that right now. She's doing some pretty exceptional things in the wellness space. And I'm just really enjoying watching her. It's just awesome.
Oh, that's amazing.
So what's next for you?
See, we'll see. I think the most.
Do you have something brewing right now? You got to have something brewing right now.
Well, where I'm at right now, which has been so exciting, is that I absolutely loved my time flying professionally, but I wanted to have more ownership and freedom over my time and what I wanted to do. And so doing professional flying, but if I decide to do that contract, I will. But a lot of what I'm doing now is doing professional speaking, executive coaching, and doing a lot of wonderful partnerships with companies to showcase what they do through my social media platforms. Started a YouTube channel, which has been like amazingly going so well because people are seeing this difference that I bring to the world, which is jet flying and getting to see from the flight deck what it's like to fly a single pilot aircraft, a Citation 5 or an Albatross or smaller planes, but they get to see what that's like to do those operations and hopefully educate people who are going through type ratings to see what the operations are like and what it's like to fly those kinds of planes. And then doing more aerobatic flying and getting to do, the Fly the Pink Jet in air shows and just continue to bring that around the world and develop its mission from there. So beyond that, we shall see, or as Norwegians say, vi skal se. So
is that really Norwegian? Was that just that seemed like English with a Norwegian accent. Stephanie, come on.
Vi skal se. But no, that's kind of what I have right now and the way that my life has continued to go. If I just allow if I allow to pour myself into things that I'm very passionate about at the time, the opportunities come, people come up to me, people want to work with me, people want to bring an opportunity forward. And next thing you know, there's something else that's in my life. Yeah. And so that is how it's always worked. And I pray it continues, but it seems to keep going like that.
You're really good at saying yes. I like that about you a lot.
Yeah.
Everyone's big on saying no, but I really like it when people say yes.
I agree. Especially people helping me out with things. I'm like, yes, I would love you to volunteer or support or this or that. Yes. But I think there's like,
yes, husband, fix my jet.
Yeah, yes. We need to get this up and flying. I'd say like 95% is yes, but there are definitely some very strong no's when there's just no time. Like this whole month is the busiest month I think I have ever had. And I'm actually telling people I will text you back in 2 weeks. Right. Like, I'm not like that. It's usually like I can get back to you on that night, but I'm like, I don't have the capacity because I need to focus on flying. I need to focus on the organization or my work. And so there are times where you have to put those boundaries. But a way that I've always seen it is that there's just seasons in life. Yeah. So this is a busy season. And I tell my husband it's going to be less in November, December, but he's like, yeah, right. But I think it will. Generally for consultants and coaching and speaking, nothing happens in December. You get to kind of take that month off a little bit or do other things. Yeah. I mean, there's always something else to do.
Katie and my wife, we said we're going to take November completely off. We already have a trip to New York planned for a week. So
that sounds like fun though.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
mostly work for both of us.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of time, I really appreciate you taking the time, Stephanie, to be on the Flight Club podcast. And this has been a pleasure interview. I know we've got a busy week ahead of us.
We do, but we're fitting it in. This is great timing.
So we're at NBAA base conference. We both are in this business and we're going to be busy as hell and it's going to be an awesome time. And so tell the Flight Club audience, where can they find you? What's exciting to you? Where do you want us to go?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite places are having them go to my YouTube channel, Jet Girl Stephanie, and to Instagram, Jet Girl Stephanie. So if you just look up Jet Girl Stephanie, and a PHANIE. So Jet Girl Stephanie, you can find me really anywhere. And then, there's the flying side of things, but if you ever want to see any of my coaching or speaking, where you say, hey, we'd like you to come MC, or we'd like you to coach our executives, or do media training, which I have from my years of experience as a newscaster. I definitely do that as well. That's just my Goetz Communications website, but you'll link that below, I'm sure. But it's my last name, Goetz, COMM.com, GoetzCom.com.
Nice. And also, where can if we want to come out and see you in a pink jet?
Yes.
Is that going to be scheduled somewhere? Like, is there a calendar?
Yes, absolutely. So you can go to thepinkjet.org or the Pink Jet on Instagram, or just if you literally Google the Pink Jet, it will pop up. Thankfully, it's kind of everywhere. But those are the best places to find it. And then our air show calendar is on there and everything. So I have another air show coming up this weekend, the Amigo Air Show in El Paso, Texas. And then there's a couple more shows. We're doing Acapulco, Mexico, which is going to be amazing. And then we've got several already lined up for the spring. And then it typically kind of rolls from there. And hopefully we'll have a phenomenal year next year as well. But also one thing I wanted to mention too, just briefly about the Pink Jet is the Pink Jet does not happen without all of our volunteers and our donors. It's all a volunteer organization. I'm a volunteer. Every one of our pilots are. We have 5 other pilots. Another female pilot, she flies the Bombardier Global 6000 as well, which is so fun. But then we have a very seasoned surface call holder air show pilot. He's phenomenal. We've been so lucky to have him support us. We have a Delta captain, a United captain, my husband, and then an operations gentleman, and then countless volunteers. We have put so much time and energy and money into this organization, along with donors and people that we would never have been able to keep this going without their support. So the support and sponsorships are invaluable and so critical for us. So those who are interested in supporting us, we'd really appreciate that, because also the organization was founded just a year ago by a gentleman named Steve Oakley and his wife Jamie. And he had this passion behind changing this blue and white jet to a pink jet. And he did it, and it was phenomenal. And I've gotten to be a part of it since almost the beginning. He unfortunately passed away in a car accident suddenly earlier this year. And so this is us continuing his legacy as well. Cool. And we wouldn't have been able to do it without Steve, Jamie, their kids. We would never have been able to continue. So we're very grateful with their support as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. And we'll look forward to seeing you out there in the Pink Jet.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks for watching this episode of the Flight Club podcast. Please subscribe to the show, leave a comment below, and follow us on Instagram at Flight Club Pod. We'll see you next time.
This is a Kilo Bravo Media production.